There are people we encounter in life, sometimes only as acquaintances, who make such a profound impact on the world around them that their little corner of the universe is unmistakably better for their presence. Shaun Patrick Tubbs is one of those people. I never had the privilege of calling Shaun a close friend. For me, he was always an acquaintance, a colleague, a castmate. My life is poorer for that distance. Because in preparing for this conversation, I realized what a remarkable path he's been on, and what a privilege it is to finally sit down with him in this way. Shaun's journey into directing, like my own, had its twists, its turns, its unexpected edges. While he continued to grow and flourish as an actor, I stepped more fully into directing. And now, we've both found ourselves deep in the same questions. How do we give voice to those in the room? How do we operate differently, hopefully better? How do we leave our corner of the universe better than when we found it? Shaun has directed world premieres, operas, regional productions across America and internationally. He has worked with students from high school classrooms all the way to Juilliard. And through it all, he's remained curious, open, generous, asking deeper questions, creating spaces for his performers to thrive, and inviting audiences into something larger than themselves. It's been far too long since I've spoken to Shaun Patrick Tubbs, and my world feels made better by reconnecting with him here on the board of directors. Man, it is lovely to see you, to be here with you. 20 years later, we can reconnect. It's just a cool thing. That's just a really cool thing. Thank you for being here.
No, my absolute pleasure. It is a little surreal. It's one of these things where it feels like 20 years, but it also feels a few weeks have passed, maybe even.
Yeah. So the last time, I guess it would have been your senior year when you and I did Laramie Project together. And so
Absolutely.
That was the last play I ever acted in.
What?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm done. I want this. I don't want to have to take work that I don't want to do. I'm happy with this. I'm done.
Well, that is now, wow, that is some incredible information. And I will say, I think it's not a hyperbole at all to say how much that play meant to do that show.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing the show, like I said, there's like 5 shows I remember in my life doing, and that's like one of them that I think I can never not reference. And that includes just not the performance of it, not the aspect of working with everyone who was in the show, but also working with Chuck Deary.
Yeah.
And I remember his direction, which was so unique at the time because he was a film director directing a play.
Right.
And I think that I've sort of referenced his intangibles, like his details over the years. But I remember, especially at good old Wright State, I remember doing that show because I remember it was like the part I was waiting for too. I had done a number of shows there and wasn't very happy with most of them. And then when we got a chance to do that on such a simple set, and it became about us and the actors, and it was with someone who I was not in class with all day, who saw me and cast me as me,
mm-hmm.
as the performer, and not, we got to give Shaun a role this time around. And I could feel it in the room. I think that I can understand the impact of that piece on you and why you could feel so full afterward. I think my approach was I got hungry rather than I was full. As soon as I think if I had not done that show, the show before could have been one of my last shows because I was a little disenfranchised with sort of the process. But that one I was like, oh, we've got work to do.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I know. And just as a point of context for the audience, this was right after 9/11. Right after 9/11, we were going into rehearsals. We were still in a recovery mode of going like, is the industry even going to be there? Like there's a lot of, Broadway was shut down. And we were the first non-Tectonic theater company production of Laramie Project. Like Laramie did in Wyoming with Tectonic, and we're moving to New York. And then we did it. So it's not that we had, a text that was proven and like everybody knew it and that was not devoid of I don't want to say it's devoid of controversy, but like we were picking it up when it was still fresh and doing that with a director, as you said, that we had never seen, never worked with, and was a bit of a kind of a left ball from the department of saying, like, the head of film is going to direct this play. And we were all kind of like, okay. So we as a company actually got to spend a lot of kind of time with each other in the room and not having to worry about other things that were going on. And it did become, holy shit, like we're actually kind of doing something here. Like this is,
Yeah, it was crazy. And we were prepared if we were going to get picketed,
yeah,
at the time.
right?
They were like, oh, this show, no one's done it. It's going to be so much controversy around it. It was at a time where, you don't do this, especially not at an academic level. And, and Chuck was fantastic in the sense that he had all these ideas, and he was very much a visual director, very much as far as like he understood the simplicity around the actors. I think he really gravitated, and I expected him to, as especially nowadays as a director, to think that, oh, someone coming from that background would think very cinematically in the sense of like, I want this little part here and grandiose scale. But he was very much like, I wanted to work with the actors and make it simplistic. And he had these relationship ideas. I remember that he added a kiss in there that did not exist in the play.
Yep.
He was like, and I get pulled aside. He goes, I want this kiss to happen because it's just going to be. It just needs to happen. It's going to be remarkable. But I was like, hold on. This is, of course, before our time of intimacy directors and anything like that. Right. So it became what ultimately I hope, I think we all hope intimacy is just a conversation about the why. Like, why is this important? I'm not just doing whatever you want. But it was one of the first times I sat down with the director and we talked about why we were doing it and like what was the message behind it. So I think that, to keep laboring on about how the impact of Laramie was, but I think what's remarkable was everyone felt it. I don't think Charles directed another play.
No, that was it. He was also done as well.
He was done, right? So everyone was done. Somehow I kept going, and I think a couple other people did.
Thankfully you did.
I will say this. I sort of, as we lightly follow everyone's lives through this little thing called social media. I remember seeing yours as someone who's just like this international traveler. I just go, I said, I'm just around the world, and I'm some in small state somewhere where I don't know, I should be in Iowa or, Wisconsin, where this guy normally wouldn't find himself. But I love that you are here and that you are doing this work with those students there. So I think it's fantastic.
I'm happy to be here. It's one of those things where I look at everybody else's career. So I look at your career or my other colleague's career who stayed here, and I go, I don't know how you did that. How did you do that? And how'd you do that? Like, I only know the path that I know, and I know that path was hard in a way. But I also I looked at the other path and I go, I don't know how to do that path either. I don't know what that path or that ladder or those friends I need to make or the gatekeepers that you have to come across and befriend, like all of that. Like, so I look at everything that you do and everything that you're doing and I go, how are you doing that? Which is, I was thinking, we both started as actors. We're both teaching at university. We're both directing, but do you still act? Are you still taking acting jobs? Okay. So when was that pivot point where you go, well, I want to do this other thing as well, but I don't want to leave the foundation behind?
Because it's one of those things where, like most things, it kind of happened, and there are definitely different landmarks that I can sort of go back to and say, okay, well, because of this, I probably ended up here. But for me, it's been a unique path, growing up as a Black man in sort of the arts. Something I realized too when I was at Wright State University is I had never once had a director of color.
Right.
Never once.
Yeah.
In anything that I had done. And I had been acting since I was 4. And I was like, oh, this is, and it hit me. I forget which play it hit me in, but it hit me in a play. And I'm sitting there and someone was trying to tell, oh, I know. It was clearly something with one of our former professors. But I was understudying someone. And the director, which was odd for me because they were an underclassman. I was an upperclassman and I was understudying. And I was like, okay, take it on the chin. There was a little bit of more Shaun ego at that point in time. But I was asked to work with this other actor who was understudying because he needed to be more Black. And I said, yeah, this probably wouldn't have happened if somebody was at least more aware. But what it did was sort of spark that idea of like, I'm not, who's talking to me is not the person who should be talking to me. And then the other part was, as I started to examine a lot of other plays that talked about different populations, unrepresented ones like myself. And I said, I'm really interested in like telling those stories. And I hadn't even figured that out then, that I was going to be directing. Instead, what happened is the first show that I got out of Wright State was I was in Jitney by August Wilson, and I was directed by Sheila Ramsey, who was in town in Dayton. And being in that room with Sheila, who spoke what felt like the same language at the time I did. And, it felt like I could speak multiple languages, but somebody spoke my native tongue.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is great. And then I realized that the way I saw things were from an actor's perspective, but I discovered that I understood the bigger picture. I didn't know how to speak to it, but I understood the bigger picture. So I was determined at that point in time that I was going to find ways to tell stories in many ways as possible. And I got derailed a little bit for a time because I moved to LA after a year stint back at Stanton, Ohio. And then I moved to LA, and I was like most the actors, hitting the road and with my headshots in my pocket and handed them out as I went. And I was lucky enough to get a lot of little bitty jobs here or there, doing what I could. But, like most students, I was so in debt from everything. So
still,
I was like,
still,
oh my gosh, right. Well, thankfully I'm out. Thankfully I'm out. Right, so I got paid off a few years ago. So good on me. But I ended up doing a little bit of work here and there, but I was working so much, just like working a job so much. And then finally I was like, oh, I need to do something. And this play came about. And I remember this was probably the first like real directing thing I did. I was in Boys Next Door. I was in it. I was playing a role in it. But the guy who wanted to put the show on, for some reason, was not in had theater background at all, but he just wanted to do this play. So he was putting up the funds and trying to produce it and everything, and he had someone directing it. But he kept trying to interject. So the person got frustrated and didn't get paid. So they quit. But we had been in rehearsal for a while. So he brought someone else on who was supposed to help assistant direct, but they were never around. So I said, no worries, I'm in it, but I'll direct it too. And I just started taking over the direction of it. I also ended up building the set. I think I set the lights for it. And I don't remember much about the process of doing it other than, trying to help people tell their story in the midst of it. But I remember when the review came out, because we had a review, and the review was hilarious because the review talked about 3 different things in a row as if it was 3 different people. It said, and the scenic design was done really well, and the lights were fantastic. And the character of Shaun Patrick Tubbs, who played this role, really felt like it was visceral, But overall, I felt like the production needed a few things. And I was like, I feel like those are all about me. And I was like, all right, well, maybe if I did a couple of less of those things, then we would have told the story. So from there, I did little things here or there, like, camp projects. I directed for kids, did all the things until I just started feeling the audacity of going like, well, why not me? So when I made a decision to go back to grad school, and I had a decision in grad school to go back as an actor or a director. But it was very clear to me when they said you can go to school for free as an actor.
There's the decision.
Or you can pay as a director. I said, let me think about this.
Yeah.
Free. And my wife and I, when we sat down and we decided on going to University of Texas, it was really because of the region of Texas. Plus, they were restarting their director program. So they assured me that I was going to have opportunities to direct, which was not true. Not really. Not at all, actually. And again, always appreciative. I've never lost the passion, of course, for acting. But while I was there, I said, okay, it's on me, just like everywhere else. But I had a little bit more space and time and the resources of talent of the undergrads, at least, who were there. So I said, I'm going to start putting on shows and I'm going to direct them. And I started doing my own work around them so I could still hone that skill, because I said, this is the education that I've chosen to have. And from there, even though I was leaving with a master's in acting and I had just a few credits, I decided to apply to Oregon Shakespeare Festival as one of their fellowships. And I said, why not? Why not me? And that attitude has pretty much been what I've had for now. Why not? If there's anyone else is doing it, I should do it too.
Yeah.
And I got it. And that was the first stint of really working and going down the path of like, well, how to become a working director. And I've just kind of been going since then. But it took that following graduation, because I got that instead of like leaving like I did Wright State right into a show. I actually left University of Texas into directing.
Yeah.
So when I started out, the first couple things I did was direct. And then I came back to acting, which was such an interesting thing to leave with a master's in acting, having been acting pretty steadily over those years, and then going to directing. But it felt natural in the sense that I was building a new skill set. So it was interesting. It was scary. It was all those things. I'm sure I was good enough, but in retrospect, I was like all the things I didn't know. Probably still don't, but I know a few more things than last time. But what I enjoyed about it was that I was supporting actors collaborators in a way that I did not have. And for me, that became sort of the most important part. It's like, how do I just support people? How do we, and more than tell stories, how do we pass on lessons, which somehow eventually led me into teaching, because I became very much lesson driven. And I was called a lot of times as directing, and probably still am called, oh, you're like a teaching director. And I'm going, I feel like all directors should teach in a sense, but I also think all directors should learn. So, it's sort of happened. And, like this has happened, years have passed, and somehow I find myself in the place I find myself.
Do you find, so I go back and forth on this a lot because I've got a background in acting. Like long before Wright State, I was in the theater world for a very, very long time. And then Wright State was there, and I very clearly stopped that and went directing. And having a background as an actor can be beneficial to that director. They speak the same language. They know what the actors are going through. But there's also a part that, and we talked a little bit about, you talked a little bit about this with Chuck, of like, I remember some very specific notes, but he also just let me do my job. And there was a trust there that like, well, you direct the role, I direct the play. And if there is a criticism about my work, it's that I am very hands-off with my actors, which is great when you've got a professional company, but when you're with students and you do have to be that teaching director, I'd love to hear how you navigate that with your acting background. You're still an actor, but you're directing and you're teaching students because, I've got students here that it's an undergraduate directing program as well. And they are working with colleagues, but they're also still in class with them. So they can't quite be that teaching director. And I keep on saying to them, it's like, it's not your job it's their job. Your job is to figure out what's the environment that they can be in. What are the hallways? What are the doors in the hallway that you close down around them? How do you be a sounding board for what they are? But you can't teach them in that position. But talk to me more about being a teaching director.
I think that the hardest thing in the way I approach is because I do have moments every show I do, no matter if they're students or professional, and I go, man, I could be doing that. Like now, like I get out of the way. I'm just going to take it over and do it myself. And that's when I know I'm still an actor, at least. But when I go, because he's hungry, he still wants the role. Yeah. But what I mean by teaching and how I think about teaching is that I want everyone to work independently. I want everyone to work independently. But I'm from my own perspective, I want to give the students, especially at the university level, the tools to go like, well, how do I have a conversation with the director? Like, what you don't know is what you're allowed to do. I think that I love that you're hands off. If you have a body of artists around you who are like, let me do my thing. And if you can give them the prompt to go do their thing, and they can take control of it, sort of like bring their voices into it. Most of the time, people want to be told what to do, which I think is interesting because it's very different than who I was as an artist where I grew up. And maybe you felt, I was like, don't tell me what to do. Let me just show you first. You can tell me if it's good or not, or you like it. And good is the relative term. And so I find a lot of what I have to do is try to open up the possibilities of what's possible when they're on stage at whatever level. So if I'm working with actors, it's as I am now and very young, very raw. And I go, you're not asking enough questions. So I don't teach them by answers. I ask them tons of questions.
Same.
And and every time I ask them a question and they go, oh, it's this. I go, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? And we just go down that one. I always joke with them, if I was a villain, I wouldn't be the Riddler, I'd be the questioner, because everything's got a question to it. And I think it's like same thing with directors. When I'm working with directors, I tell them to stop trying to answer things. Instead, find better questions. When you leave the world of the play, what question have you left the audience? And there are better questions. There just are better questions. And I don't think you ever find the best question, but I think don't be satisfied with one question that you ask. There's just better. Because they're always asking, what's the play about? And I go, and I usually frame it in the form of a question, by the end, because I go, that's what I want to leave an audience with. I don't want them to leave happy or sad or any of those emotional things that sometimes people hear, or having a good time. It ends there if I do that. Instead, I want them to think about like how their moments of joy they found in the play, what are those moments of joy in their life? And how do they keep refining those and capturing those every day? Like, that's the thing when I think about that, we're all teaching artists, because I think that's what we're teaching each other by the work. And I think that as artists coming up, when there's so much handed to us now, which I think is amazing too. Listen, I cannot believe I have a couple actors who I just worked with last week, and we're like 3 weeks in, and they're like, still don't know what this word means. And I'm like, hold up. You don't know what the word means?
No excuse.
Like, no excuse. I was like, take your phone out of your pocket, because I know it's in your pocket. You shouldn't have it in rehearsal, but take it out of your pocket, hit the little voice thing, and ask what it means. And it came up, and they were like, oh. And I was like, do you realize what it was like? I said, the reason I appreciate our generation, in the sense of like, not that any is superior or whatever, because everyone's going to have that, is because I have been through all of those variances. Like, my parents didn't have any of it through their education growing up, as far as like technology wise and access to things. I had it towards the end.
Right.
So I understand that you need both.
Yes.
But I ended up I was carrying around, a lexicon for doing like stuff in my bag. I had the dictionary, I had a thesaurus.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to the library to find stuff out, to do the research. I'm writing on my papers instead of going like, Chat GPT, tell me what it is.
I have a first folio that I'm carrying to rehearsal. I got the Shakespeare lexicon for Christmas, and it was $120. Oh my God. A through M and then N through Z.
Oh my gosh. And you couldn't tell me anything going to rehearsal, and I walk in my lexicon like,
exactly.
This is what this means.
I was in a directing lab on Friday, and we're doing Hamlet Ophelia, and they're working on the scene and everything. And I'm remembering, like, I had stacks of books, the art in Shakespeare, like we'd always there. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh no, actually I've got an app. I have an app that does every single Shakespeare word, and it pronounces it for you. And then the audacity of saying, what's this word? What does it mean?
Just the audacity. And I go, it speaks to the level of what it speaks to lots of things, passion, level of what it is, but just the fact that it's like the teaching moment, besides that you're making someone frustrated by not using the thing that you have in your pocket.
Yeah.
I taught you that. But the teaching moment is that without knowing, what can you do? Right? Knowledge is the thing, the key. Like, your understanding of what you have available to you makes you that much better and can tell that much more of a story. Like I said, every word is a tool. I don't really care how you use the tools, to be honest. I'm not so precious around language sometimes, other than you need to know what it means.
Yeah.
Like, if you say it wrong, hopefully what you said that was not written on the page, you understood. Because if you understand it, then I can understand. But if you don't understand it, I don't know what's going on. So I think that on every level, if it's just with professionals and it's clarification around the understanding and the meaning and the why behind it, I think we are still necessary for that, because for me, a director is the first audience.
Yes.
I think it's great because I get to sit in the audience, but I get to sit in the audience and also go like, you know what? I got an idea. So I think it's fun, but I think that that's the whole part of it. The part I love and why, and I had to figure this out too in academics. It was like I kept going like, well, what do I have to like continue to give them, and what book is it? But where they get it from is not going to be where I get it from nowadays. Like they're going to get it from where they are, and I need to understand that. Like it becomes all of these things stirred together, but in a fun and what I hope is a way that makes them able to communicate just with the world around them. Like that's my ultimate goal for the young artists that I have, because I don't know where their journey is going to take them. I don't know if they're going to drop, but everyone's needed, and every perspective is needed, as long as we are comfortable talking to each other about it. I think when we only want our thing, when it's just us, the dictatorial director or actor who's like, I'm going to do it my way, and I go, okay, well then you should do it by yourself. But if you want to work with others, you've got to learn how to talk to them.
Yeah.
Can
we dig in deeper, because you mentioned two things which are really what this podcast is all about, which is the rehearsal room itself, which is its own community that the audience never gets to see what happens really in the rehearsal room. It's what we take away from the rehearsal room. But the whole environment that you set up determines if that play is going to be a success or not. And then there's a whole other community that joins later on that we have very little control over. But that's also, like, as you say, the takeaway is, I'm not here to just entertain you. I want you to take this away. What are the non-negotiables for you in your rehearsal room? Like, what is it when you set that up and you go like, if we don't have time for that, then we need to make time for that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is that it's respect. I mean, I think everyone has the way they approach that. But for me, it's that we're all going to make mistakes. I always let them know that I'm the first one who's going to tell you I'm wrong. And I said, it's a great opportunity for us to find a better way if something doesn't feel right. Also, I'm a lot of phrasing. I'm a phrasing kind of guy. So I always start off by letting people know that I'm not married to anything but my wife. That's that. So I was told I'm not allowed to marry anything else. So I'm only married to my wife. So every idea we need to have ideas to start, but those are just so that we can ask better questions by the end. So it's not negotiable for that. And if anyone is not willing to honor those things, of the respect in the room, of embracing people finding new opportunities, or that how someone would say making mistakes, then you can't be in my room. And even with my collaborators, my lighting designers, my scenic designers, my sound designers, costume designers, I think that we need to be, that it cannot be one person's idea. It needs to be a conversation. I'm probably, I have my, my crew of folks who I've worked with over the years who I love, and we've just learned how to talk shorthand with each other. And I think we just share a lot of ideas on the way things could be. And they understand when I'm like, oh, I got an idea. But I think what the one thing I try to instill in directors is that you are the captain. And I think that's a hard thing to do, because you do want to be nice to everyone. You want to give everyone a voice and respect everyone. But at some point in time, you are the filter that everything runs through. And if you have, without that, then you tell different stories. And a lot of times, collaborators, designers might want to go, I want to do this thing. And I go, great. This thing we can't do that because of this. And I need to be able to talk to them about that. And I need them to be able to understand that. So when they come into the room, like when we add crew into the room and things like that, everyone needs to sort of inherently understand these rules, that I want to know everything, but allow me to be the translator to everyone else.
Yeah.
And if you want to speak the language by yourself, then I may have to have you by yourself. And I think that's one of the hardest parts, because it feels like you're telling people that they can't have something. Instead, I'm saying you can have more than that, because it's going to be added on to. Your idea is fantastic. When you couple it with this idea, now we've got these two things working together. Isn't this better than you just wanting your one thing? And, for me, so I guess one of the intangibles for my space is that collaboration has to happen. It has to be embraced. It has to be appreciated. And I think trust. If you can't find a way, if you feel like I'm not the one who you can trust in the room, then given what I have to do, I think that it could not work. So, but it is also then my responsibility to build that trust. I can't just say, well, I'm the director. You have to trust me.
Right.
And they go, but why? And I go, now you're asking questions. And I'm into those questions. So I think that has to happen. The other thing I think is that we always have to go, like we come back to, especially in plays. I'll use plays as an example. It's a story. No one's serving anyone. You're not serving my idea. To me, you're not serving my idea. You're not serving anyone else's thing. You're not serving the playwright. You're serving the play and the story. Yeah. So I've had playwrights in the room who are like, oh, it's my play. I said, you put it down on paper. The play exists now.
The play exists now.
It's the story. So I have to honor the story. And this is what the story says to me. And you could say something to the story because you're the playwright. And if you want to change something, then I'll look at the story and say, you know what? The story says something different. But if you try to talk to me about the story that I'm seeing, I go, no, the story is still saying this to me. You can change it, but if you don't want to change it, this is what I get from the story. So I think we all figure out what we're honoring. Is it the story? Is it, an idea? Is it the presence? We make an agreement and say, okay, let's honor that thing and take ourselves out of it. So that by the end, it's not about the actor, even though it's very much an actor's medium. It's not about the playwright. It's not even about the play, but it's about whatever the play leaves us with. And then we work towards that. But yeah, I feel like, my rooms ultimately this is probably the most keen thing that I've learned recently. I used to say that I provide safe spaces. And I think I just coined that with everyone else in the world. Like, I've got a safe space.
Right.
One, that is complete and utter lie.
Yeah.
Safe spaces don't exist.
No, they don't.
They just don't. But what I think I was trying to say was that my goal is to provide a supported space. I can always provide a space of support, which means I'm not going to look at anyone's idea and go, dumb. I'm going to go, I love that. Let's keep talking about it and find out if it fits into the world that we are creating. But that's how I can support. And if someone has a bad day or it comes in with something else, I can't make you feel safe. But what I can do is find a way to support you in a means that lets you stay who you are through the work, so that when you end, you're not a broken shell of yourself as well. So, but that is something that I work towards. Support is active. Safe is passive. Safe is like, come in the room, I close the door, you're safe. I don't have to do anything anymore. And I think that's where we sort of
I like that. Support is active.
Track of it.
Support is active.
It's active. Like, if I'm going to hold something up, I'm holding it.
Yeah.
I'm supporting it. But if I say it's safe, I put it on the shelf and I assume nothing can happen. Yeah. So I was trying to keep my hands on that thing, on each individual's perspective and idea as we move through. And I ask for the same thing. I say, hey, listen, I think the only way I can support is if you support me. Let's hold each other up. And I think that when I came to that realization, it allowed me to ask for something that I hadn't been able to ask for, which was support as well. Because they always think that, the director is like the pillar and they don't need support. And it's a lonely road sometimes. I thankfully, I have support outside of the space. And I think that that's the thing that's allowed me to keep going. I've been, married for quite some time. And, I felt like I have a network around me who, if I can just talk, I can talk. But in the room, I have accepted that I'm going to have to like carry that within that space by myself, because I also know as an actor that I don't want to hang around the directors you mentioned because they just gave me a note today. And I'm like, how dare you give me a note?
Yeah.
But I can understand, like, I want to give them that space. So I have had actors, and you probably have had, who are going like, let's hang out, let's do things. And I go, no, because I think that if I hang out with you, I'm going to take away your space and freedom to just be.
Yeah.
And you think you have to be on. And I want you on stage, not on when I'm around.
And I need to be a little bit objective as well. And
and
I love you and I want you to do fantastic. But at the same time, I also have to go, that's not it. You're not giving it your all. You're not doing, what you need to do.
And sometimes those connections are great where you can make small ones. And like, I like to get to know folks who, I work with, so that I can learn about them which helps me in turn feel like how I can communicate with them better. So there needs to be a little bit, like, I don't want to be like, don't talk to me ever. I don't need to know about your childhood or your life or your interests or your good or your bad. I do need that. But what I need them to understand is, as I'm learning it, that I use those as moments of teachable moments, So I think that even when we're together, instinctively, because of the way I work, I'm sort of kind of like in this mentor teacher thing. And I think I lean into it because I go, I'm using your information to help me communicate better. So if they say stuff like, oh yeah, when we did today, that reminded me of this. And I go, that's great. You were saying how that reminded you that, what was that clarity over that moment when you were in it? Like, tell me a little bit more about that. And I ask them these things to unlock something for them to just go. So I don't have to stop every moment and go like, what can we explain what's happening in this moment? Do we know where we came from? Do we know what this happened? So but it's a weird balance that, again, no other position within the creative process of creating something like a play or a musical or an opera really has to do. I think that the director is just such a unique one, because even when you're having, maybe the closest thing is a conductor in something like an opera who doesn't want to get too close, but even they're so on the measure of whatever's going, they could be like, we could be best friends, but this is the note. And people go, that's the note, right? Like legitimately it's an A sharp. So I was like, okay, cool.
They're also
I don't
present.
think anyone has
they're
it.
also present throughout the entire process, whereas we step away.
We step, and exactly. They're there, and they're like, oh, you remember that one show? And they talk after, and they hang out. And we're there for opening, and if we're there past opening, all life has ended, because they're like, are you going to give me another note?
Right, exactly. You can't talk to me. You can't talk to me.
You can't talk to me. You got to go through the stage manager.
The stage manager.
And stage manager's like, I'm not giving any notes. And I'm like, it is what it is. Like, at that point in time, I got to let go. I'm not, because then it's about me. And again, I go, it's a learning thing. If I finish a show and, I feel like, and I see multiple productions like I get to do in academics, and I go, okay, I didn't get them to the understanding that I had perceived. How can I be more clear the next time?
Yeah.
And but there's always going to be an opportunity, because it's going to be different people and things like that. But I do think that a lot of being a director, just in general, is just being aware of all of those levels. Like, I think you can walk in and just not have to be aware of levels in other positions. As an actor, I don't need to be aware of nothing but my lines some days. I'm like, where are my lines? Where am I standing? I'm over here. Done. I look like a champ. I stood there again today, director. I stood there again today. And that's my favorite thing. People don't understand. They're like, and there was a lot of directors who didn't want to work with me once I started directing as an actor. It happens a lot, because they assume, because they've seen my play or they hear me talk, and they'll go, oh, I can happily have as an actor. I was like, you don't understand. As an actor, I'm the best, because I get it. And I'm just going to sit there like this the whole time. You won't have a word from me. You'll be like, Shaun, are you going to think? No, whatever you want to do, I'm just going to do. I can't. And I think it's because I get that I cannot see at what they see. Like, I cannot see. I'm not in the audience. I'm on stage. But at the same time, the director can't see what I can see.
Right. No, yeah.
And that's the whole thing, and just understanding both sides of it.
This great. I try, and when I talk about this intangible thing of the rehearsal room, of what our job is in the rehearsal room, and it's the saying of the actor's an astronaut, and all we can be is mission control, and all we can say is like, go a little bit to the left. What do you see? But they're the ones who see it,
Yeah.
They're the ones who report back. So I have to be this satellite dish, as you said, this first audience, to be able to, like, okay, this is what I'm getting from you, and I can channel it back to you. I love that you said that you're the best actor. I started to become, which is why I stopped acting, because I started to see, like, if I just take 2 steps to the left, the light will hit this moment better. So I started solving problems that directors weren't asking me to solve, but they weren't, like, changing it. So, like, they were acknowledging, I guess, I was solving a problem, but I was just like, if I can't be present here in the character, if I'm simultaneously astrally projecting myself outwards and looking at this, I got to get out of here. I have to. This isn't going to be beneficial to the story long run, or me long run.
I mean, I think it's I think it's incredible that you had that insight, and the way you took it, the perspective is really interesting, because I think for me, it's that, but I look at it as a positive because it's similar as a director. Like I don't want to tell my actor to do something, not really. I want them to get to it, so I feel like I'm a little bit like I'm leading them on
Yeah.
to get to a place,
Yeah.
and then we all can go like, oh, we got there. So even as an actor, I may lead my director a bit, but but I'm doing it if I feel like they've got a lot on their plate. Like they can't see everything at all times. It's like when we will rehearse a play and we get to tech, and then all of a sudden it's like that one thing we're like, you know what? I don't think we even looked at that one thing, meaning of that one thing. Like, how did we make it this far? And you've got to give yourself credit that you looked at everything.
Yeah.
And that one thing didn't slip through the cracks. It just was not the priority. So if I can take away something that I'm like, I see and I feel in the moment, but also still stay present. So I go, you won't feel it every day as an actor. You just won't. I don't feel it as a director either, but it's a little easier because I'm sitting on that side. But when actors don't go like, oh, I'm just not like, I can't emote, or, I'm not, there's no tears. I go, okay, it doesn't have to be about tears. What do you understand? What do you do? How are you breathing in that moment? How might your breathing change because of these circumstances you're at? What about the physical proximity you are to someone else? That tells a story. So if you can't do it, what could you tap into? So get closer, get more specific, like those things. I used to play I did with Susan Laurie Parks, and there's like a 6-page monologue that, I would just go crazy through. And then there was a moment she wrote in cries for the whole world. And I said, say less. And I would just go, but I was technically so unsound even at the time I did it that I cracked a rib because I was crying so hard because I was all about the cry.
Right.
And I said, it wasn't about the cry, which I figured I'd have to hurt myself a little bit. And I was like, it's about allowing the audience space to feel those tears for the whole world. And I was actually doing too much because then the audience had no room. So I could understand it by being in it a bit. So I think that the times I jump from, I change my hats and I jump into the actor seat, I'm reminded of a different perspective, hearing a different director, because as you said, we don't share the same room. So the only time I get to hear someone direct differently is when they're directing me. And then I take that and I go, oh, that was cool. Yeah, you don't know, but I'm going to take that to my room. Yeah, that's mine now. And I'm going to go into the room. And I feel like I'm like a spy. I'm like a director spy. And I'm going to go into each room and take all the things.
No. Actors steal from life.
Great.
Actors steal from life. Yeah. Directors steal from everything.
Everything and everyone. So I think that I've been given two perspectives and I'm thankful for both, but I can't pretend like I can do all the other things. So, which I love because then I value them so much. I go, man, I've stage managed before. I'm never doing that again. I'm the worst. Because then I'm sitting the director going like, yeah, you sure about that? You sure you want to do that?
That's why I tell my students, like, get out of assistant directing as soon as possible, because all you're wanting to do is your version of the play, and you're just going to watch somebody else ruin in your mind what the play is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but I wonder more about assistant directing because, most of my early career was assisting. I've assisted probably 20 times because I did a number of fellowships. So my training has all been in fellowships. Like I didn't get again, my master's is in acting. So I didn't, I think it's fun that I teach directing now. Teach is a very loose term as I say that, because I let them know how I came into directing. And it was by sitting in the space with directors, refining my own thoughts, sometimes going crazy because of those thoughts.
Yeah.
But from the first one I did at OSF, then I went to the Drama League. No, I went to the SDCF. So I got the foundation ones there. I did a couple there. I actually went international with them. I started operas because of that, because I went to the Royal Opera House and did some stuff there. And then I started doing the Drama League. I got into that. But I did that. I was Asolo Rep's second ever directing fellow. I just did a number of fellowships, and I was sitting there and I would sit in the room with people, just try to absorb what I could about each process. And sometimes I jumped from just one show, at Asolo, I was in rep. So I'd be in one rehearsal. A couple of days later, I'd go to someone else's rehearsal. And I learned, much like you told your students, that it's not my show. So I started to learn there, and it took a while. I was awful in the beginning. I was talking about my first assistant directing opportunity. It was the worst thing that's ever happened. It was bad. But I was also responsible for that poor moment, because I was trying to keep infusing my ideas in someone else's thoughts. And I didn't know you couldn't do that. I thought I was helping. And I was like, no, what I'm doing is I'm not understanding. So I started going through each one, realizing where I can learn my patience, because I think I learned all the patience from there. And I could sit in the room and go, just give it a moment, give it a breath, try to understand why this is happening. And if you don't, it's okay, but write down why. So I stopped having all these notes about like what they should do different. Instead, I started writing notes about why I was having the feelings I was having, so that when I walked into a space, I'd already practiced it. And I go, okay, I'm seeing someone trying to infuse their idea in something. I want to jump in with mine. I'm going to sit for a second, and I'm going to sit with it. But I'm also then going to go in with conviction when I feel something. I'm not going to go like, I kind of think this is a thing that maybe can happen. Instead, I'm going to go, let's try here. We're going to try yours too, but let's try here. And then let's talk about it. Let's not just try it. Let's not just do it, but let's come back to it and say, what did we learn from it? And then a lot of times I'll go, yeah, thank you for trying that out. It wasn't effective. And if it wasn't effective, what could be effective? And then we start down that thing. So I needed that. I will never do it again, probably. Never ever do it again, because now but I can't even say that. I think that I have figured out better ways to support directors, but I also realize most directors don't need the support in the ways I thought they did. So when people assist me, they think that they need to tell me about this note or need about that. I go, you don't have to do that. Like, I'm there, and I just have a different. I'm going to get to it in my path.
Yeah, right.
You want to get to it in your path. Like, your path, it's the most important thing. Mine, it's the least. And neither one's wrong. It's just I choose to not get to it till later. So I go, where I can be supported is by having just other eyes in the room, to have someone who I can ask questions to, who's not an actor. And I started becoming that when I was assisting, where I sit in the room, they go, Shaun, how's it going? I said, I'm I see that how we're moving through the process. I think it's great. Now, be honest, you're like, tell me really. And I'll go, no, because I'm here to support the process as you've laid it out. And they would ask me, well, does this make sense? I said, well, now I can help you, because I can tell, we can talk about that, but I'm not going to offer it because I don't know when you need it. So I think and then I saw that with other directors and designers who would come in really heavy sometimes and say, like, this needs to be like this. And I go, they didn't need to hear that.
Yeah.
And in the moment, I don't think we can always feel that. I think we do need those opportunities afterward to go, I get it. I sat there and I saw it. And it's different than mine. And here's where I think I had benefits. And you only know if that works or is beneficial when you see within the process, the outcome comes out the way you thought. Because a lot of times we'll be in process and be like, this is working great. And then I go, do those people want to work with you again?
Right. Yeah.
Is the first question. Because, I always go like, I know from my designers, if they've had a good time, not because they've sat there and they've gone, heard, I'm going to do that, is by the end, they're like, we got to do something else. And I go, oh man, that's great to hear. Because some of them just go like, it was great working with you. And I'm like, heard.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. Understood. That's a learning. Thankfully, I don't hear that very often. But I think that's like, it's just, being an assistant, the function, which I wish was explained to me, because no one really explained that part to me the way I needed to hear it, was to be a better listener. The way we say to actors, it's not about what you say, it's how you listen to it. It's not about the action, it's how you react to it. And I go, for me, I needed to see how others reacted and understand that this isn't about my idea. It was about how I was interpreting, how I'm able to help everyone, find their path, as you sort of alluded to earlier.
I only AD'd a handful of times, but I stage managed a lot.
Gosh.
So I'm in the room basically with a director's mind as the stage manager, doing my job. Nobody would know, but I learned how not to talk to people. How
Yeah.
not to talk to actors, how not to talk to designers, or what were the effective ways of talking to, what were the things that unlocked the imagination to where then they wanted to work with you, or what were the things that very clearly said to some actors like, no, I don't need your ideas, these are my ideas, do them. And just watching the shoulders slump and them just shut down and become an automaton for the director. So those are my learning.
I remember being an assistant director, and actors would, and again, I learned this lesson too. They would be like, "Oh my god, I can't stand this, and this feels like inappropriate." And this, and I'd be like, "I'm thankful you told me all that." And then I'd go to the director and say, "Hey, I mean, this is what's going on." And the director's like, "Oh, interesting." And then the director would say, "Is everyone this is stuff from here?" And they go, "Nope, that's not what I said."
Yeah,
And I go,
exactly.
"Whoa,
Yeah.
you're hanging me out."
Yeah, no.
But so instead of me, thinking that I needed to use it as a tool, sometimes I was someone they could talk to about it. And I need to know and respect as a director, if I receive that information, that I can't just turn it back on the people because they once confided in someone. But also, if they were ready to talk to me about it, they would have done that, and they're not. So I have to go, okay, maybe I need to give that information back through to whoever and say, hey, it's not from me, but let's figure out ways to get what they need if you're up for it. Or I hear it, let me just make some adjustments along the way, but I'm not going to break that path that you may have had with them, but you have access that I will never have access to. I also work as an intimacy director
Nice.
at times. And what's interesting is I will walk in the space and I start hearing all these really personal things, lovely personal things, but that I would never have gotten if I was simply their director. And I go, and it reinforces like, oh my gosh, people wait to confide in those who they feel will use the information in the best possible way. And for some reason, they don't always believe a director will do that. And I think it's warranted in a lot of times. Like a lot of directors won't. They'll turn it on their head. They'll say like, I don't want to, this line is hard for me because it reminds me of something that happened to me when I was very young. And a director might go, who are like the Strasberg trained ones, would be like, that's great. I want you to revisit that. I want you to use that. I'm like, don't do that.
No.
Don't, no, we don't need that. Instead of going, I honor that, I hear that. And I appreciate that. And then throwing the question back, like, what do you think you need in this moment? Like, what's going to honor you to allow you to tell the story if we agree that this is what the story is? So I encourage people to not necessarily assistant directors do that, but I said, do other things.
Yeah.
Like learn lighting, learn sound design. Like, don't ever do it, but learn it. And because when you learn it and you sit in a space with someone who's making that their chosen path, you understand their language.
Yeah.
So like if I walk in a room, I don't just go like, I need it. Like I love, one of my directors did this really early on. It's, there's too much light on the sides, but can it be brighter? And I was like, what are you asking? What are you telling them? Like look at the instruments and say like, what's this one at? 70%. Is it possible to do this one at 80 and bring this one down to 60 so we have the same thing, but that's going to give more front shadow? And then they go, oh yeah, we could do more front shadow. Is that what you're talking about, front shadow? So now I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Or if I talk about clothes, which I did recently, and I have a dress that has to open up because of the thing, and they go, person's like, oh, we have to do this like closure, and I said, well, clearly we don't want to do Velcro because I know we don't love that, because I know most designers don't love Velcro, and I'm like, yeah, but what we could do is, we could do a clasp or a hook and loop, because those are really cool. They're like, yeah, I said, but whichever is easier, because I think it's what, like 6 hook and loops we had to do it there. They're like, yeah, that's about 6. And I'm like, and I think I get a little respect. Like, I'm not saying that you have to do it this way, but I'm saying I get it. What I'm not asking,
I know the work
easy.
that you're going to have to do.
Yeah. And now I respect it more. Stage management the same way from my end of doing it. When I talk to my stage manager, I'm like, you sit in this room with me all day, just hearing me talk, going thing. And you're sitting there and you're asking me what I need by the end of the day, or did I have everything? If I can't respect that, then why am I doing what I'm doing? And I think what has garnered me is like how I get work. I have never once applied for a directing opportunity. Never once in my entire life. I'm actually not sure exactly how to do it. I should do it.
Good for you, though.
I do think I should do it, and I don't say that like as a gleam of things.
No,
but when I'm offered something or brought in to interview, because I've interviewed, but when I'm brought to the table to interview because of whatever recommendation, it is never singularly because the first thing I hear is not this. Oh, because what I saw you do last was so amazing. They said, because who I spoke to, that they said that you were someone I should work with. And I go, that's the whole point of
That's
it.
how I want to
Like,
get jobs.
I walk in a room,
Yeah.
right? I want to get jobs. They were like, I knew you were someone I want to work with. And then I go, okay, well, that means that you hopefully understand how I work, what I feel is important about work, but what is carried through to allow you, because again, the work has to be good, I would imagine too, because it's not like that's a nice guy, let's just give him opportunities to go every show he crashes and burns.
Right.
Like, let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But you understand that for me, when I hear that, I go, okay, the relationship's the most important part. And we can talk about that, because for me, I'm not concerned about the outcome of the show. I'm going to do the process until you tell me I have no more time. And I'm going to work on it until by the end, it is as clear as possible for an audience and is involved as much as what we can do. I will honor everything, budgets, whatever is to my extent, but I'm going to be very honest. And when I leave the space, I care. I don't want to leave it destroyed. So I think that the fact that that's how I'm sort of entering into spaces has made those spaces much easier, even when there's tons of pressure. I'll go from a show, like we all have those ones where you get paid like $1,000 to knock out this thing, or even less for a reading. You're doing a reading, and then the next one you're in for several $1,000s because the budget's like $200,000 for this opera, which is going to last 3 shows.
Right.
And you're like, okay, all right, well, this is an interesting thing. But ultimately, when you're in the space, like, I have to know who I am. It's taught me, directing, acting, the whole bit has taught me who I am. So when I walk into space, I'm no longer apologizing. And I think that I used to apologize, or try to become something, And I go, I would want to, in the very end of everything, to be, if I'm known for anything, I would want to be known for who I tried to be in the room. And I'd say try, because I'm working on it all the time. Like, I'm actively trying that support. But yeah.
Again, this is, like, when I started this and when we have our monthly meetings and I'm meeting with young theater makers from all over the world, like, I don't want it to be about here are the tips and tricks of being a director in the room. Here's this method and here's this method. It's more about, I'm really interested in how is Shaun Patrick Tubbs putting himself together every morning and going into that rehearsal room? And that you're already talking about, like, the choices you're making in the work or in the room, or the non-negotiables, or just being a person that is hired because of how you made someone feel. And that's a trustworthy thing. That's a desirable trait to have in the room. Let's just go ahead and say the work is excellent. The work has to be excellent. So you're getting hired, and so there's a given. But, like, if you're an asshole and the work is excellent, versus you're a great guy and you're making supportive environments for actors to open up and flourish and things like that, that's a phenomenal thing. But
No, of course. But I think assholes get hired. I just want to say
get hired.
Assholes get hired all the time. But I always would tell anyone, like, if there's a tip or trick that I wish I could instill on anyone, it's like, maybe choose to be a good person.
Yeah.
And
it costs nothing.
It costs nothing to do it, but it gives you so much more than the other end. Yeah. I could do a show alongside someone who's an asshole, and their show might be as shiny and new, maybe even more than mine. But what happens?
Right.
How do you affect the people's lives after? How do you continue the conversations after? Because I think that, my old grandma would say, like, closed mouths don't get fed. So I go, like, I want people to eat. I want people to be nourished. And I can't do that because I can't through just the work. Like, I can't assure you're going to get more money or you're going to get this other opportunity. But what I will hopefully lead you with is something that, you feel nourished with, like, that you can now do the next job. You don't need a break after my show. You don't need a break after the room for me, because ultimately I'm just a person in the room. Like, I don't believe in necessarily experts. I feel like people who have just more experience. The level of my experience grows every time. And what I bring in the room is that my expertise is less of a given in anything, but I don't need to be an expert. I surround myself with people who are better at things than I am in the space. I don't, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I have not done what I could to make the room better. I want to go at the end of it and go, like, man, They go like, you did so wonderful in the show. I said, I hired really smart actors. I'm not going to pretend like, they didn't do it. Or I had someone who could take my thing about like, I need blues and the blues are doing the blue thing. And that lighting and scene designer were like, I got you.
Yeah.
Shaun, calm down. We got your blue for you. And I go, that's the blue. That's the blue. And that's not me being an expert. That's me saying the thing and somebody taking it and running with it and putting their voice in it. And that's the reason I got into it all, because it was like, I felt like voices were missing. So I'm like, I do want to hear everyone. I want everyone to have a voice in there, but I want them to understand that my voice, as much as they're supporting my voice, I'm supporting their voice, right? We're going to both have our voices in there. And when it's done, by the time we get to opening, and I don't know if you feel like this as director, and I always like to ask my directors this, how do you like, I always go like, how do you feel at opening? Because for me at opening, I'll say this much, I feel nothing but pride.
Yeah.
But pride. Like, I don't think about, like, when I get to opening, literally opening night, like dresses and previews, I'm like, oh, fix this. At opening, they're like, aren't you proud? I said, I was proud up till then because I poured everything in the process. By opening, I'm walking in like everybody else because I don't have anything else to do. And I know it's not about me. I don't even need a congratulations, because if you enjoyed what was on stage, and I look at the audience half the time in every show I watch, I'm just watching the audience, then that's the reason. I don't do it so I can look up there and go, great job. I look at so that I can look at the audience and say, the audience gets it.
Yeah.
They're moved by it.
Yeah.
So I rarely even look at a whole opening night because I spend time, I'm the weird guy in the audience.
No, I'm watching the audience as well. No,
just
yeah.
Right. Just in the back, just watching them.
Yep. Back,
and I go,
back corner, worst seat in the house.
Gosh, worst seat in the house.
Yep.
Because you don't want anyone else to sit there because you don't want to ruin their experience. But I go like, I don't think that that's discussed enough amongst like directors, but also like even in the education sense, just throw that last nugget in, is that what is that last moment for you like? Like, when you look at the audience, like when you see a show open, where are you looking? And I like to ask the directors who I work with, I said, where were you looking? Oh, I was making sure that, they were doing this and I was looking at this. I said, then you next time you're in the process, consider.
Yeah.
Just look at the audience.
Yeah.
Don't look, because the audience is what's going to teach you about the next show. Not looking at, you've looked at that cast for probably weeks.
Yeah.
But you've looked at this audience and the audience is seeing it fresh. They let you know when you hear the laugh, if there was a laugh, if there was a cry, whether or not the things you did were effective. And if they weren't, fantastic. Go back in there for something else. If they were, even better. Double down next time and see what else you can get from it, right? Maybe there's more. Maybe you lean down that path. Maybe you figure out you've gone too far because you don't receive it like that. You don't search for those moments again, but you learn how you got there, because by the end of a process, it's a whirlwind. Unless I was writing it day by day, like today's direction was, I learned and we went through lines. I can't tell you what happened.
Yeah,
like, it's just a blur.
Yeah.
But I can tell you whether or not it was worth it, in the sense of like, we did what we came to do when I sit and look at an audience. And that's beyond reviews or whatever, because that's one person. But when I see the collective group who's made an agreement to walk in a space and imagine that something's happening, it means the world to me. Like, that's all I care about is the audience. They go like, performance, how did you do? I don't care. I wasn't looking at you. I looked at the audience. I felt that they were on board, which means you did what I know you could do, and we did what we came to do.
Yeah. And
then we were fine. It's taught me a lot, even just hearing this, obviously hearing from you and your path, and I think the fascination that the opportunity it's created to just understand people's path, and not in a way to saying you have to do what I've done.
No, but
in a way of going like, there's so many different ways
paths
to do it.
Yeah.
I think that I wish that there was more of that, where we started let's just learn about the path instead of saying, do I need to change my thing, and say, no, please don't do what I've done. Don't work as many jobs as I've worked.
Learn from my mistakes. Learn from my, well, it's not, and I don't even consider them mistakes. It's just that worked for me. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I do not expect it to work for anyone else. I didn't even know how it worked for me. Like, let's be 100%. Like, how did I get here? Which was sort of the thing. I don't know. Like, I did. What law is there? Keep going. We all have made choices. Lots of people from our time
Oh, yeah.
who are no longer practicing within the arts. I think everyone's sort of in the arts, and that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But they're all practicing in the arts. And I go, but every day I made a choice to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I said, the only thing I can tell you is that if it's for you, and that every day you wake up, you can make a choice to say yes again, do that.
Yeah.
Despite everything else, in lieu of everything else. If you take a year off, great. But are you waking up going, I would say yes again? That means you're still there. And it's okay to say no for times, but I will always come back and say yes. And don't apologize for living your life. I have many careers. I have appeared on podcasts about my health and wellness background.
I know.
And I go like, that's fine. That doesn't make me less of a director, doesn't make me less of an actor. It makes me more of a person, which I think we need more people in this world, like not professions. We need more people. I don't want to develop directors. I want to develop people who can have a function within a practice and a craft.
Curious, empathetic, entrepreneurial citizens. That's what I say that I...
Listen, right? That's all mine now. Thank you for today. Next week's classes are going to be so good. They're going to be like, Shaun, such insight. I'm like, you're welcome. I've been thinking about this all day.
Okay, so I always ask two questions at the end of the podcast to kind of keep the conversation going, just because we could talk all day long. But so first question, what's a show that changed your habits as a director or as a person or as an actor? Something that you saw and then like there was before that show and then there was Shaun after that show.
Now there's probably too many. So I'm going to give one that changed how I directed quite a bit. And it was actually the second opera that I ever did. It was Lost in the Stars. Kurt Weill.
Oh, yeah.
And I had been a Kurt Weill fellow, which meant I just received a fellowship, nothing else. Had I worked on any Kurt Weill prior to that? Never. But this was my first full-blown, I had done a few chamber operas, but this is my first full-blown opera. And I went from working on chamber operas with max of 4 performers, to 36. And I was given 2 weeks in a place I'd never been before. And then it was bigger because it was an anniversary around Lost in the Stars. I had access because of the foundation to like materials that weren't ever put together in the original. And they gave me the ability to sort of like create sort of an original production cobbled together.
Yeah.
And then the amazing writer and director Tazewell Thompson was brought on as a mentor at one point. So I knew he'd be visiting. So I had all this pressure to do something I'd never done before. And I'd never taken a class or anything about what it meant to stage direct. Not really. And I don't think I really learned any of the things that I had to do during the chamber operas, because they were more like we're sort of figuring out as we went along. So I had to come in with all these disparate sort of schedules too. And I had to know the entire show front and back, where everyone would stand, where they would move and things like that. The first day, I ended up staging the whole show, the entire show, in 2 days. And I'd give people, it changed the way I worked. I would like have ground plans, and I'd move people around like puzzles, and I considered the lights, and I asked questions that I had never asked as much before. It's like, how much time is it if I walk from this vom to this vom? Someone needs to time that for me before I get there. And they said, I said, walk slow, but walk slow. And they said, okay, it's 32 seconds. It's 32 seconds. How much music is that? And I went back to the music, and I did this.
Yep.
So I was not even proficient in music at the time. So I was learning music. I was learning how to do this. I was calling this. So when I walked in, I had like a stack of information, and I gave people numbers. I said, I'm going to learn your names at some point, I promise. But you're number 17, and you're number 15. 17 goes here. 13 goes this one. 13 turns this. And I started doing this, and people were floored, because I knew everywhere everyone needed to go. And when I sat back, almost all of it stayed. But what it made me do was look at how I prepared. Did I ever want to prepare to that extent for any other show? No. that was madness. I was in a room like the guy who puts the strings on the papers and looking at the things. But what it made me do was like consider everything, all the moments as I went in. I didn't look at things as broad strokes anymore after that. I looked at them as sort of like the smaller intricate pieces. I looked at text different because it became musical to me in a way that it never became before. But it also made me much more decisive. Like, you know, as much as I love to investigate possibilities in the room, I had to go, I need to start somewhere. And sometimes I think I wouldn't come in with a definitive idea. I came in with like a hope or, you know, a general concept. But now it was like, I have an idea. So I think that show, above all, when I sat back and I looked at that audience, that was one of the few that I then looked back up at the stage and I went, wow.
I did that.
I did that. And I did that because I believed I could, not because I had someone who I could lean on, not because I knew it beforehand. You know, they always ask, when are you ready? And I said, when you decide to take on the responsibility, you're ready.
Ready is not a feeling. Ready's not a feeling.
It's not a feeling. It's not a feeling.
It's a decision.
It was absolutely. So I would say Lost in the Stars was probably the most definitive one as a director.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I'm a firm believer, even though I'm teaching directing, that directing can't be taught, that you have to just direct. And then in the doing of it, the quantity of doing of it, you find your way there. Like I can set up some situations and I can offer some, you know, advice or some been there, done that's, but like getting up in front of people, moving people around, taking those conversations or those questions, that's how it's done. You had your grad school moment. There it is.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, so who are you excited by? Who are the directors that you're interested in? Who should I ask to come onto the podcast next?
My goodness. Wow. The ones who I've appreciated, the ones who I watch are the ones who I think I have access to who've come before me. You mentioned Anne Bogart. Anne Bogart was a huge thing. You have no idea how much I investigated Anne Bogart's production of Lost in Stars. Anne Bogart did. And I look at that and I look at what sort of come before, because I think everyone has something to teach me. I don't see very many often. There are two who I watch their work fairly often, and I'm impressed by it all the time. One is Carl Caulfield.
Oh yeah, Carl. We had him on the old podcast.
And Carl's work has been fantastic because what Carlos has been able to do to elevate just the spaces that he's been in has been fantastic. So that's one. Probably Stevie Walker Webb. I enjoy Stevie. We're very different people, but I love when we agree on like the work. So Stevie Walker Webb, who's now the artistic director of Baltimore Stage and is back in town because he's doing Oh Happy Day at the Public. Stevie's great. Stevie's fantastic.
No, Stevie. So that's definitely that. Thank you for that.
Because Stevie's profound and incredibly passionate in work. You know, some of I think everyone else sort of hears like, you know, I can never pronounce Lucy's last name right. So forgive me, Lucy Trebon, who's French. But Lucy, I'll tell you, Lucy's the art, and Lucy's directed me. And I've watched so much of Lucy's work. Lucy is the artistic director of Moliere in the Park here in New York. So most have gotten their Shakespeare runs of like, oh, we have free Shakespeare in the Park every year. Lucy, who is French, said, well, we need to know about Moliere.
Yeah.
And the work over the years to establish the organization and build this foundation within Prospect Park, especially in New York, to give another perspective of free classical work of another vein, has done some of the most amazing things. Their Imaginary Envelope, which they just did, was astounding. But I've worked with Lucy specifically, who directed me in that show I mentioned. And what I love about Lucy is his ability to just allow actors to kind of go there and support big choices, but somehow, some way find a way to make those big choices make sense. Like, you know, I'm going to stand on a table and I'm going to throw confetti in the air and do this. And she's like, I got you. If we do this, this, and this, now it's in the context of the play and it doesn't feel like an actor was trying. It feels surprising, but not shocking. So those I would say probably are the individuals who I follow, and I see more of their work now. There's two more people. I just want to say, I have to say them because they are some of my favorites, and they'll be left off. Davis McCullum.
Yeah.
So Davis, who I've assisted for, I assisted him on a Sam Hunter play. Of course, is artistic director of Hudson Valley Shakes. Is profound, and one of the most emotional directors I've ever been around. I don't think I've ever told him, but when you watch him as an assistant, watch him watch the work, he is experiencing every moment. Beautiful. He will sit there and be like, oh, and he emotes through everything that happens. And I think that it reminds me of that I don't have to be separate and watch it from like this cold lens, but that I can be in it. So I feel like that is a huge thing.
Perfect.
But those are the ones who, if I don't see their work routinely, I consider the work that they've done often.
Nice. Shaun, let's not let another 20 years go by.
No more than 15 next time.
No more than 15 next time. Let's cut it down. Let's cut it down to a decade.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's really clear that we could talk all day.
Yeah, and I appreciate the conversation immensely, and this will go down as one of those other things when someone asks me, "What's that thing?" I'll say, "Hey, I was on the board of directors studio podcast, and this host Adam Marple was just incredible and made me understand some things that maybe I hadn't considered." So I appreciate the next little tab of my life sort of unfolding in front of me.
And look how good of an actor he is.
Oh! I'm available. I'm professional. I'm in all the unions, everyone, if you're looking for someone.
This has been fantastic. Thanks so much, Shaun.
Yeah, no problem. Look forward to talking to you later.
Thank you for joining Board of Directors. We are a global constellation of theater directors dedicated to building community, sharing knowledge, and transforming the role of the director in the 21st century. We foster fellowship, community, and belonging among directors globally, facilitating cross-cultural exchange and artistic mobility, advancing ethical leadership and field-wide transformation. We support artistic and pedagogical innovation, building a curated network of directorial voices shaping the future of performance. Join us again next time on the Board of Directors podcast, where we collectively learn how to be a director together.